We thought it would be a great way to kick off this call by sharing that video. Brittany, do you want to cue that up for us?
Good morning. Thank you all for being here at Save the Children Action Network's Advocacy Summit. SCAN has been a leader both here in Washington State and across the country in fighting for our youngest generation and providing them with opportunities to ensure they are ready to succeed in kindergarten and beyond. Through grassroots organizing and a fierce group of advocates and leaders, SCAN has played a pivotal role in creating new investments in and prioritizing early learning. From helping to pass the Seattle soda tax to create millions of dollars for kindergarten readiness and access to healthy foods for our most vulnerable children, to successfully fighting to expand investments in and access to our state's early learning programs, to being a partner in the ongoing battle to push back against cuts to Head Start. Your accomplishments have helped many children get the right start in education, but we have a lot more work to do. That's why I will continue to be your ally in fighting for early childhood education at the federal level. And it's why earlier this year, I introduced the Child Care for Working Families Act, which would ensure no working family pays more than they can afford on child care. And it expands access to high-quality preschool for low-income and middle-class 3- and 4-year-olds. And to assure we are attracting the very best teachers, it would invest in our child care workforce with higher pay and better training. As a former preschool teacher, I understand the difference high-quality early learning and care makes in a child's education and the positive impact it has on their families as well. And I know you all understand that too. As some of you know, I got my start as a parent advocate fighting on the ground to save our local preschool program. And I can tell you that all of your voices and participation in the political process, including the fact that you're taking time out of your busy schedules to learn more about how to be an effective advocate, are critically important in our fight for the next generation. So thank you all for your hard work, and I look forward to standing by your side as we continue to fight for early learning opportunities for our children. It's not only the right thing to do, it's a smart investment in our future. Thank you.
So again, don't take it from me. We clearly have heard it from a Washington senator, and we promise you, we did not script her on this. She said this on her own. She sees the power. She sees the impact. Even though she's an ally of ours, Ryan and the team in Washington State are still meeting with her, sharing stories, helping her see the work that we're doing both at the state level and the national level to be able to help her have more impact in the work that she's doing as we share our stories with her and let her know that her constituents are behind her. So a big congratulations. Again, I said we're going to say this many times to you tonight, but congratulations to be able to have that impact, that we could get a senator to say such truly lovely things about us and acknowledge our work. So I don't, Mark, have you joined yet? I don't see you on here yet. We're a little ahead of schedule. So let me just, I'll do a little filibuster while we wait for him to join us. So during Mark's, he's going to just kind of give some overview, and you'll see people are filling in the chat box, and we have used this on other calls very successfully. So while Mark is talking, or even while I'm talking or anybody else, feel free to put questions in the chat box, things that you would like to highlight. If there's something you want to share, you can put in the chat box. We can call on you, or sometimes you're in a noisy place and it's just easier for us to read it out for you. So please feel free to use the chat box if you are not driving to be able to share information with us. So let me just, I want to start, we're going to pivot after Mark speaks to talk about some of the state work that we're doing, and also kind of foreshadowing for the upcoming year. And as I said last week, we had the first ever advocacy summit in Washington, state advocacy summit in Washington State. And the reason why we did that is because we can't bring all of you to Washington, D.C. each year. We don't have the budget, and that's a very large, as we're growing in the states, a large delegation to bring. So we're going to start rolling out over this next year in 2018 state advocacy summits. They won't happen in every state next year, but we will begin to roll them out. And it'll be a great opportunity for all of you in your state to come together and to learn, hear from each other, hear from your elected officials, and be trained about what's coming next in your state. So look forward to that. I think it'll be really exciting. And again, we won't do it in every state next year, but we'll do it in a significant number of states. The other thing I want to just kind of start to highlight is the great work that's happened in the states, and what we see, you know, and the impact that's happening, that it's having. So looking at Iowa, I know there's a lot of you from Iowa on the call, and we can see that this past year, the team in Iowa has submitted 9 letters to the editor since the beginning of the year. I'm looking at EJ, and he can nod if that's a correct number. And 8 of them have been published. I mean, that is an amazing success rate. I know many of you on this call have published letters to the editor, and I suspect many of you have not had them published. It's very challenging. But I think what that shows, and we've seen this in some of the other states, that submitting letters to the editor in a timely fashion from someone local in the community, sharing your story, your voice with a clear ask, that it's more impactful and we're able to get those published. So congratulations to Iowa for the success on LTEs. And they've also had a series of successes around getting LTEs published. I mean, not LTEs, I'm sorry, in-district meetings published. LTEs published. I mean, in-district meetings, I apologize. I was looking at my phone because Mark has now joined us. Getting in-district meetings done, and including Diana, who you see there behind EJ. She had a great meeting with Representative Young and was able to get him to sign on to the REACH Act. So the impact that is happening and the relationships that are being developed in the states are having the results we want to see at the federal level. So with that, talking about the federal level, I want to introduce Mark Shriver, who is the founder of SCAN. It was his vision to create the organization to build political power around kids' issues. And Mark, I want to share with you that we have on the call represented 18 states, and we currently have 56 people from those states on the call. So I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about kind of the national overview and the successes we've had in 2017. I think you have to unmute yourself, Mark. Apologize for this, just 1 second.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, so we can hear you now.
Okay, great. Thank you. I had a nice couple of introductory comments there, and then you told me that nobody could hear me, so I'm sorry about that. I was saying, Kimberly, I'm sorry I sent you a text to tell you I was on because I threw you off there a little bit, and I'm so excited that we have so many people from 18 states. Wow, it's amazing. And I just wanted to thank everybody so much for the incredible work that's happened this year. Wow. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know, Kimberly, I was listening to some of your comments there about the letters to the editors that were submitted and the high percentage that were published in Iowa and how hard that is. And having been in as an elected representative in the state legislature in Maryland, those letters to the editor get read by staff and by members. They get circulated around. It makes a difference. All of these efforts make a difference. They all lead towards raising the visibility of the importance of investing in children and their needs. And it just, whether it's a letter to the editor, whether it's showing up at a town hall meeting, whether it's an op-ed, whether it's phone calls made, I mean, these things all make a huge difference. Kimberly, everybody watched the Patty Murray video. Is that right already?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, I think that was fantastic. Wow. I mean, there's a U.S. senator with a lot of influence in Washington, D.C., thanking the folks not only in Washington State for their good work, but across the country. I just thought it was fantastic. And I mean, it's just so exciting. I was down with Jennifer Gardner about 2 months ago to see our programs in Kentucky with Congressman Rogers of Eastern Kentucky, a guy who used to chair the Appropriations Committee, still on the Appropriations Committee as a subcommittee chairman, spending the day with him and the great work that he said we're doing out there. And he wrote an article that was published with me about the importance of early childhood education. All of these efforts, gang, makes a big difference. So I just wanted to again say thank you. I know, SCAN, we built our volunteer leader program up in target states with almost 30 volunteer leaders from 11 communities. In 2017, expanding into 4 new communities, Tacoma and Nashville, West Tennessee, and Chicagoland. The Student Ambassador Program expanded to 11 new schools. There's over 70 student ambassadors in 28 schools now, which is amazing. We've generated almost 875 messages to lawmakers, in 2017. Kimberly talked about the letters to the editor. I mentioned, I know we published over 40 of those in local papers. It's amazing. Had, almost 170 public education events, and just meeting with thousands of people all across the country, meeting with lawmakers and their staff over 80 times. I mean, you all probably know these numbers much better than I do, but it's incredible. And outside of our target states, we've recruited over 40 active volunteers who have organized events and met with lawmakers. And all of these grassroots efforts, combined with the efforts of the national office, really contribute to some major federal policy achievements for children in 2017. And, when 2017 started, we knew that we were going to have challenges with a new president, new members of Congress. But I think with a lot of the help that you all have done, we've really kept kids' needs at the forefront with the reintroduction of the REACH Act to save babies and mothers' lives internationally, the protection of funding for Head Start and other key kids programs in the budget, and the introduction, I should say, with bipartisan support of the PACE Act, which is around the child care tax credit. These are all major efforts that have happened as a result of the hard work you all are doing day in and day out. And I want to pause and see if there are any questions or comments there, Kimberly. I mean, I just, sometimes when you hear people say thank you, it sounds trite and insincere, and you can't obviously see my body language and energy here, everyone. But I just want to, again, reemphasize how grateful I am for the hard work you do every day. And sometimes I'm sure it seems like, God, we're sledding uphill here. It's hard. And does one voice really make any difference? And it really does. I'll just tell you one quick story. After the election in Virginia here, the House of Delegates, which was run Republican majority, it's now down to 1 seat. And that seat is being determined by 10 votes. So whether you're a Republican or a Democrat is not the point. The point is that control of the House of Delegates in Virginia is going to come down to 1 seat, and that seat is going to be determined now, as the latest count is, between 10 votes. So if you think you're out there in the wilderness and your voice doesn't make any difference, remember, if 6 people had changed their vote in Virginia in that one district, it would be, I think it's the Democrats, it's trailing now. The Democrat would be up by 1 vote. So a huge amount of difference on an ongoing basis. Kimberly, I could talk a little bit about the plans for 2018, or I could pause here. What do you suggest?
Why don't you talk about the plans for 2018, and then we'll open it up to questions. And again, feel free to add anything to the chat box if you have questions while Mark is talking.
Do we have any questions on that? I don't see the chat box. Is anybody interested in what I'm saying, or is everybody watching sports or watching what?
They're all smiling. They're all smiling and nodding.
Are we? You mean like they're nodding like they're going to sleep, or they're nodding like they're excited?
No, they're excited.
Is there any questions coming in there, or do you want me to just keep going? I'll go about 2018. So we're going to continue to push ahead here. The same attitude we had entering 2017, which is that, kids are our most important priority. And we're going to continue to push both Republicans and Democrats to include, children, financially support them on state and federal level. We're going to push for the full passage of the REACH Act. We're going to defend funding for ECE early childhood education and maternal child programs and the appropriations process, just like we did last year, or the year we're in right now, obviously. We're going to look for those opportunities at the state and local levels to increase access and improve quality of early learning programs. And we're going to help elect or re-elect state and local candidates who are supportive of kid-friendly policies. So, this is part of the work that we do. And we're going to participate in voter education and get out the vote efforts to ensure that our two priority issues are addressed in the 2018 cycle. So I think, we've got so many big opportunities out there that I wanted to just let folks know that we're going to bring on board in early February a new president of SCAN. I'm going to stay on board as the CEO, but I'm really excited that Chris Perry is going to be the president overseeing our team and operations on a day in and day out basis. I'm going to work with Chris and obviously Kimberly and the team, and I hope all of you, on strategy and making sure that we're firing on all cylinders. And Chris, I think, is going to be a really, really strong addition to the team. She serves as the executive director right now of the First 5 Years Fund. And the First 5 Years Fund is a bipartisan advocacy organization that works on early childhood education issues at the federal level. And we've done a lot of work with them. Chris served on the SCAN board, so she's very familiar with our work, our mission, and obviously very committed to it. And she's going to report to me, and we're going to work together to set the strategy for 18 and beyond. And once she's settled in early February, when she starts February 5th, when she settles in, I'm going to invite Chris to join us on one of these calls to speak to all of you and to listen to all of you about her. And I think you'll be impressed by her passion and her commitment. She comes from California, where she worked on their early childhood statewide efforts out there in California. She's been doing this work for decades. She was a great partner as head of the First 5 Years Fund, and we're really excited that she's coming on board as the president. So that's a little bit of news. I think it's a real shot of confidence to the great work that you all are doing day in and day out. I got to tell you, one of the things that First 5 Years Fund doesn't have a grassroots presence. It doesn't engage in political activities, and Chris understands the value, really the value that you all do, valuable work that you do every day. And I think that's one of the reasons, one of the main reasons, I know that's one of the reasons she wanted to join SCAN, because she understood that that grassroots presence on the local and state level not only drives policy at the local and state level, but also on the federal level. And that was something that's desperately needed. So I'm really excited about Chris coming on board. And maybe I'll just pause here for a second, Kimberly, and see if anybody's got questions or comments or constructive criticisms.
Great. So please, Phil, if you have a question, you can unmute yourself, or you can also put it in the chat box. And while you're doing that, I will just kind of reiterate what Mark said about Chris Perry. I'm really excited about her coming on board and joining our team. One of the things that I think is, her experience is extensive, but she also has state experience. So she knows what it's like to work in a state, to build infrastructure, to pass legislation, to move policy. So she'll be a great asset to us as we build out your campaigns in the states going forward. So is there a brave soul to ask the first question?
Oh my God, nobody wants to ask a question? We've got dozens of people from 18 states.
Come on, someone.
Do you have any questions, Kimberly?
So there is actually, somebody put it in the chat box, they are curious about the tax bill and how it impacts the work we're doing.
Well, I mean, we could maybe, Kimberly, I know Roy, who does our policy work, has done a assessment of how the tax package impacts kids on a number of different levels. We have set up and we maybe could send that out to folks,
Yep,
Kimberly, if
absolutely.
that's of interest. Which is obviously more detailed than what I'm going to give right now. But as I think folks know, we created what's called an action tank about 2 years ago. Not a think tank, because we want to come up with solutions and then actively go out and push those. So it's not a think tank, it's an action tank. And we set up an action tank that I co-chaired with a guy on our board named Mike McGavick. And Mike is from Washington State. He worked for Senator Slade Gordon out there, Republican from Washington State to the U.S. Senate. He ran for Senate and governor out in Washington State. And he joined our board, and Mike is now the chief executive officer of a insurance company called XL, which is a reinsurance company. And we convened a group of folks from First 5 Years Fund to the YMCA to other children's advocacy organizations in town, to groups like, or companies like Goldman Sachs, PNC Bank, Pearson Publishing, to come up with a series of recommendations that we all could agree on that focused on kids' needs, and particularly on those crucial, first 8 years of life. And after coming with that bipartisan approach, we shopped it around on Capitol Hill, and we did this before, obviously, President Trump got elected, because we felt that either Mrs. Clinton or Mr. Trump would look for tax reform, and we wanted to work with Republicans and Democrats on doing that. And we settled on trying to increase the child care tax credit, which is different than the child tax credit. The child care tax credit focuses on the needs of families in the exorbitant cost of child care. In 33 states across the country, the cost of child care is more expensive than in-state tuition for colleges, for universities. So it's a really huge issue for working families all across the country. So we pushed that issue, that tax credit. We wanted to make it larger and refundable. The House almost eliminated the tax credit altogether. We got to put back in there, which we worked with Congressman Yoder and Congresswoman Noem, both Republicans, and tried to get it put into the Senate bill as a refundable, as they said, issue with Senator Collins, but that did not happen. So as an organization, both Save the Children and Save the Children Action Network has come out against the tax bill that was passed out of the Senate. And I, given what I've read about the conference report, will be opposed to the conference report that will come out. I think it just disproportionately, it's a huge loss opportunity. The bulk of the tax breaks go to businesses and to wealthy individuals, and not to the families that need the help the most. And those in particular are with young children that are struggling on the exorbitant cost of childcare. And I just got to say, I think it's not only a missed opportunity, because that's kind of nice language, it's just really a blown chance to really help families that are struggling and to disproportionately help the wealthy. So I'm very disappointed in the leadership of the country and the leadership on a federal level. I mean, tax reform happens about once every 30 years. Last time this happened, I was in college. So it's a huge, bad bill, frankly.
And Mark, one of our other concerns is about spending going forward. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Kimberly. It's a great point. Gosh, I can't believe it. I'm sorry I got off a plane. That's a huge point. So the problem, obviously, is that this is going to create deficits. Despite some rosy words from some members of the leadership in the House and Senate, it's generally acknowledged by everyone, that, including Senator Hatch and Speaker Ryan, it's going to cause deficits, and therefore they're going to need to do reform of Medicare, Medicaid, and what's called discretionary spending. So they're not going to cut the military budget. They're going to cut discretionary funding, which is programs like Head Start, which are tax benefits like the child care dependent tax credit. They're going to cut the child care or the preschool development grants, and obviously issues that directly, and programs that directly help poor children and their families. So what you're going to have is a shortage of revenue, and when you have a shortage of revenue, people are going to start now complaining about the deficits, or will shortly complain about the deficits, and then the things they're going to cut are the poor and those that don't have a voice, which is going to make your job even that much more important. And that's no BS. That when the revenue tightens up, and people are going to say, well, we can't continue to deficit spend, even though they created the situation themselves. The leadership's going to start saying, okay, we got to cut stuff. And Ryan and Hatch both, and President Trump both alluded to this at the end of last week. And it all got swept up because of, Flynn and the whole Russian investigation overshadowed the tax bill. And this is a major deal, and we're going to have to rely on the grassroots to get mobilized and say that this is not acceptable, get fired up and frankly pissed off about it, because that's the only way we're going to make a difference.
Thanks, Mark.
So thanks for saying that, Kimberly, because it's a huge deal.
Absolutely. So we have a question from Shannon about what, if any, are the anticipated shifts with the leadership change?
What if any? I'm sorry, I missed that word.
What if any? Are there any anticipated shifts with the leadership change? Shifts.
Yeah, I couldn't hear that word. Yeah. No, I mean, I think, I'm obviously staying engaged. My office is going to move about 20 feet or maybe 40 feet. So I'm going to be close to Kimberly. I'm going to be close to the SCAN team, close to the U.S. programs, which I oversee as well. And that's great because the programs help inform our advocacy, and our program staff on the ground are becoming advocates. And I think there are great synergies in that front. So I don't foresee any, issues in this. I think we're adding great depth to our work here. As Kimberly, you talked about Chris's experience in early childhood education and the actual delivery, and then in the advocacy work in California, and then obviously the advocacy work on Capitol Hill. The First 5 Years Fund is funded by 10 big foundations. We share, I think, 3 or 4 of those funders. So it's going to help, I think, on the funding front. I think we're going to, do a better job on our strategy and get sharper. And I think, do a better job every year. I think Chris is going to help out immensely on that front. I'm really excited that she's joining and going to add depth and, leadership to the effort. So I'm completely bullish on it. I'm completely positive, and I think it's going to be great.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? So while you guys are there's one last question in the chat box, Mark, about what about CHIP efforts? I know this is not something SCAN has currently been working on, but if you wanted to talk about why and again the importance of the program that we know of.
What is going to happen on the CHIP front?
What about the CHIP efforts?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's going to end up happening from, what I can glean, although, this was kind of what happened where I think it was going to go a couple of hours ago. So who knows now? It changes all the time. But I think the funding for CHIP will come through here in kind of the last minute. You have CHIP, you have home visiting, the program McVee, which again, as Senator Hatch, who was one of the architects of the CHIP program with my uncle, Senator Kennedy, said, we can't fund CHIP because we don't have any money. Of course, the answer to that is we don't have any money because we're giving tax breaks, huge tax breaks, disproportionately huge tax breaks to corporations and the wealthiest 1%, and then it's being footed by deficits, which then mean that we don't have the revenue to fund programs like CHIP or home visiting. I think ultimately CHIP is going to be get funded this year, and I think it's going to be an ongoing battle next year, as it will be for home visiting and it will be for Head Start. And if we don't hear your voices, these programs will get cut back substantially. It's as simple as that. If we do not hear and you all do not stay engaged and stay fired up and get 10 more friends to sign up, to send emails, put it on your Facebook page, go to town hall meetings, write letters to the editor, and when one letter doesn't get published, submit another one. And when that doesn't get published, submit another one. Just be like a bulldog, clomp on to something, hold on, do not let go. I'm sitting in my basement in my house here, and then I'll shut up, Kimberly. And I have on the wall, some quotes. I wrote a book on Pope Francis. I got a couple quotes on the wall from him. And I got the one from Margaret Mead, which says, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Love it. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So to, this thoughtful, small group of committed citizens, I want to say thank you. I think you're changing not only what's going on locally and in your states, but what's happening in America. And I want to just ask you to double down. Get a couple more buddies, friends to do it. Get a couple more people on your list. Get a couple more people to show up at the state fair, to show up at the town hall meeting, to maybe submit another letter to the editor, or maybe to write an op-ed, and maybe if you've never done it before, do your first one. You know, this is the time. This is going to be the time that our voices have got to be heard more than ever. So thanks, Kimberly, for having me. And thank you so much to everybody for listening to me ramble a little bit. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark. And I'll let you know there was a number of people in the chat box that have said thank you for all your hard work and looking forward to the future, and we'll be keeping on fighting. So I think people hear your plea and they're fired up and ready to go.
Yeah, I love that Margaret Mead quote, right, Kimberly?
Yep, it's great.
I love that. It's just, I mean, it's a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world, and it's the only thing that ever has.
Yep.
All right, thanks a million.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for joining us.
Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you so much.
All right, so we have our marching orders, right? You're all going to go out and 5, 10, 15, 20 more people? Nod your head, yes, no. And on our staff calls, we do this. We go thumbs up or we go thumbs down. So, you know, it's like, or it's equal. So thank you all for, you know, hearing Mark out. I am really excited about the addition of Chris Perry joining us and growing our staff. As I think many of you know, Mark took over not just the, you know, creating SCAN and leading SCAN, but also now has been leading our U.S. programs. And it's a big job for one person, even someone like Mark who can do a lot. And so bringing in additional help, I think, will really improve our work and move us forward. So, and particularly in the States, I'm excited that Chris Perry has experience in the States, because that really, someone who's worked in the States, who understands what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, will help us, inform us as we listen to you and hear from you about what you need to continue to be advocates. So I want to take just a couple quick moments to kind of finish running through some of the state successes. And I'm going to hop around a little bit here. We talked about Iowa. Illinois has also really stepped up this year. They've gotten Representative Davis on to the REACH Act, and after doing in-district meetings, as well as, I think we're down to one Republican member that had been on previously in Illinois. We're working to get them all back on, so that's very exciting. And developing really good relationships with our elected officials in Illinois. I know in Kansas, we have Kansas in the House. Megan arranged a info session at her library on her own. Now, these are states where there's not staff on the ground to help support them, so they do this on their own in partnership with Mike, who helps give them the resources they need. And through that, she recruited others in her community to help her in tabling and other activities. So out on our own, finding people, bringing it to the community. So really exciting to see that happening in Kansas, which is a really critical state for us. We've also seen similar efforts in Mississippi with volunteers going and doing in-district meetings with staff. Senator Cochran, who's a critical member for us in all of our work. On Ohio, we've had Crystal, who's established a partnership with a local preschool program to recruit more parents of young kids to join the efforts. Again, going out on their own, finding the opportunities to really expand and build the base to help move the advocacy forward in the community. In South Carolina, we ran a successful campaign, or I should say, you all ran in South Carolina, a successful statewide campaign to protect funding for Save the Children's home visiting programs. In some of these the states where you all are located, we have Save the Children programs, and Save the Children's programs in South Carolina were going to be cut. And we were able to help bring the advocacy voice to save that program. And another kind of fun fact that happened in South Carolina this year is they had the opportunity to throw out the first pitch at a Fireflies baseball game. It was Save the Children Action Network night at the Fireflies baseball game, which is really fun. Like, we don't always have to do serious things. We can do fun things too and engage the community in the same way. So I love that. They got to do PA announcements. They got to hand out swag, throw out the first pitch. So look for fun opportunities. We want people who are engaged with us to be having fun. We also have to go do in-district meetings, which can be fun. Sometimes they're challenging, but we want you all to be having fun as you're working with us. In Tennessee, which was a new state for us this year, we just moved into the state in March of this year. We've already established a community action team in Nashville. We've had 10 letters to the editors published across the state. So clearly there was a need for us in the state if we've been able to have 10 letters to the editor published so quickly. I've had great meetings with Representative Blackburn and Representative Black, two key Republican legislators for us to be moving our agenda in Washington, D.C. Washington, you already heard me talk about the great statewide advocacy summit we had, but they also helped pass the sweetened beverage tax that you heard Senator Murray talk about. And without SCAN's involvement, those funding resources would not have gone to early learning programs in Seattle. Because we were involved, because of our advocates, we were able to increase the resources in the city of Seattle for those programs. We've also, we've engaged in mayor's races in New Hampshire. We were engaged and successfully helped elect pro full day kindergarten school board members in New Hampshire. It was, the candidates have acknowledged that it was through our volunteer engagement, knocking on doors, making phone calls, that helped them win. At least one of those races was a major upset. We took out an incumbent who had voted against full day pre-K previously. We also moved another incumbent in supporting full day kindergarten, full day kindergarten, not pre-K, full day kindergarten in the state. So really excited about the work we've been doing across the country. We are going to be soon, Diana is working with our communications team to put out kind of year-end review. And when you see by the numbers, Mark talked about some of the numbers, nearly 900,000 messages sent to elected officials this year. We will exceed over 1 million next year. And it's because of the work you're doing. It's just really exciting how much work has happened. And I don't think when we started this, I would have envisioned this early in our early childhood as an organization. I used to joke about how we were in the home visiting phase, then we were in the early Head Start, and now I actually think we're in pre-K. We might be close to kindergarten now as we're growing as an organization. So is there anything else out there that any of you that you're really proud of that you want to share with the team that I didn't? Again, there are so many things to share. I really sped through. I want to just give you a laundry list. Is there anything anyone wants to share that they're proud of that they did this year? You can do it in the chat box or you can speak. Come on now. I'm going to embrace the awkward silence. All right. I went to some town hall meetings that were fun. And that was from Blue in Oregon, and they got Senator Wyden on the REACH Act early on. So, and that was through one of the town hall meetings they went to. Others? Well, I'll say I'm excited. I've seen, I'm going to call out a few people. I know staff aren't talking because they've probably been told not to talk. We've got one here. This is from Annalise. Movie showings in Colorado. It was we had our first event in Colorado in Denver in late June. It was great. Someone else was saying they love the whole within our reach photos. Like that was a really fun kind of snap advocacy. Lots of people engaged on it, and we were able to share that with members of Congress. Again, showing the impact and importance of our international funding and the REACH Act.
Diana had something to add.
Okay.
Your letter.
During, I guess, was it October? Yeah, in October we met with Congressman David Young here when he was in the district office during break. And one thing that I took with me to that meeting was the letter to the editor that I wrote that mentioned him, that complimented him.
The last time he signed on.
Yeah, from the last time he signed. Well, it was from June actually.
Yeah.
And anyway, he said, well, I don't usually get letters to the editor that say complimentary things. And so he appreciated that. I mean, that was like, it happened 4 months previous, but it was brought to his attention, and I think he was going to sign on anyway, to be honest with you. But it was just a really good opportunity to have it there and influence him in some way.
But you closed the deal.
We closed the deal, yeah.
That's important.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had a couple of things in the chat box, which I think are great. I love that we had almost 40 people at the Advocate for Kids training in Columbia this year. We had Republican Mike Kaufman in Colorado co-sponsor the REACH Act, as we also got the Democrat Diana DeGette, which we expect her. They had Illinois had a great advocacy training in Peoria, and LaHood signed on to the REACH Act. I will also say Illinois had a great at big advocacy training in Chicagoland that I got to attend. It was great to see the team being built there. So we had high school students from Cleveland, Ohio, how LTE published in Cleveland's biggest paper, and she received a handwritten response from her senator. Senators pay attention to LTEs. So I think we could go on all night long just talking about all the great work you guys have done in the States. And again, I started this call with, you're going to hear this over and over and over again. But, you know, Mark, I think Mark's quote from Margaret Mead is really important. It's a quote that I have actually carried with me and have used on and over again in trainings and engagements, because it really is each individual and the impact you can make, and multiplying that by coming together. So as you're building out your community action teams, building out your clubs for your student ambassador programs, the SCAN clubs, whether you're engaging in the community by yourself and identifying 3 or 4 new people to work with you, each of those activities, the sum of that together is what has made the difference this year in terms of the work we've been able to do to, prevent cuts to Head Start, to get the co-sponsors on a REACH Act, and to educate people even during the tax debate about the importance and what kind of programs our kids and families really need in terms of support. We don't always win, but we're making a difference by informing the debate. So I want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart for all of you, because you make my job what it is. And I know how the rest of the mobilization team and the SCAN staff feel that we could not be doing what we are doing without your support. So thank you, and I wish you the best holiday season. And we will see you back in 2018 in January for another leader call. So thank you, enjoy, and Happy New Year.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.